Hi everyone, this is Fede and I am the host of Culture Art, the podcast about the internationality of students in Groningen in all its facets. Are you ready? Hi everyone, and welcome to Culture Art, my personal podcast, in which I have the big pleasure and honor to introduce everyone in the international field, in which I have the great opportunity to be involved during my master experience here in Groningen. Today, I am very happy to have as a guest this very cutie and pretty girl. I am here with Camilla Elmstrom. Hi, Camilla. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, for me, it's a big pleasure because it's something very, very important and interesting to get in touch with the international people, and in particular, as in your case, a person that has, as I like to say, a double soul. So you are both Swedish and American. You have this double nationality, and you born in the U.S. in California with these beautiful and highest waves, and you moved to Sweden at the age of 12. Now you are attending your bachelor in international and European law, so this is more or less your background and current university experience. So first of all, I would like to ask you if you want to describe yourself in maybe a few words, a few sentences, something about your personal perspective about yourself.
Gosh, this question is always really tough for me, but I would say myself, I'm fairly ambitious. I really love helping people and helping friends and anyone really, but overall, what I try to be at least is just kind and also resilient in any way possible. So just trying to get through life in that way, I guess.
Oh, compliments. Very important and interesting features to build a good personality. So you are half American and Swedish. And I would like to ask you, which are the main common features of the each two aforementioned countries that, in your opinion, you assimilated the most in your personalities and in your daily life. In fact, you described very well the main feature that, in your opinion, are the most important part of yourself, of your soul. From which sides of your two double country souls derives these types of qualities that you describe in relation to your personality?
I mean, I find it kind of funny because Americans are usually known for being loud and, somewhat obnoxious, at least from a European perspective. And then Swedes are they can be very reserved and very kind of cold, like how we describe them usually is just being cold, like the country. So I would say for the most part, for the majority of my life, I've adopted a more Swedish outlook, I would say. But the last year, or the last year and a half to 2 years, it's definitely changed, and I've become more open, and I think that has to do with just interacting with people. But sometimes my American side will come out in certain aspects of life. But like my father's Swedish, so but he's lived in the U.S. for 20 years. So he's also adopted that like American side, I guess, just being more open and being more like willing to talk to people. Whereas like in Sweden, if you were to, for example, sit on a bus or a train or something, you would make sure that you would not sit next to anybody whatsoever. Like any kind of connect, or like not connection, but like if you touch people and like physically at least, then it's a big no basically.
Oh,
So yeah,
amazing.
they're very different, but it's interesting to see. And I hope I've adopted more or less like decent, or like a decent balance between them when it comes to personalities. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And very interesting, absolutely. I'm thinking about that maybe it's not only a sort of a common statement, a common stereotype, the fact that people from the northeast part of the Europe, the world in general, like of course where Sweden is located, are considered colder in behavior, in personality, but it's something really.
Yeah, it's
No,
very true.
it's true,
Yeah.
yeah. Maybe in your opinion, it's something connected to the cold temperature, or no, it's something, I don't know.
I mean,
Thank you.
yeah, it's weird because like it's so closely connected to the environment itself as well.
Mhm.
So Sweden is just a, it's a cold country in general, it's the north. But society wise, it's like that's just how people are, and it's really interesting to see, and it's how like having that polarization between the Americans where anyone will go up to you and ask you a question no matter where you are, to Swedes who will do anything to avoid like that kind of social interaction unless they get drunk. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's weird, but it's cool to see definitely.
Of course. And you previously mentioned your family, the fact that your father is really a little bit introverted, cold, for what I understand, like a typical Swedish person. Going into more in detail about it, I would like to ask you, how did your family really impacted in your multicultural growth?
Mhm. So, I mean, there's been a great impact, of course. I mean, my mother's American, so and she was born in Texas. So it's, you have the stereotype of Texas, but she does not encompass that whatsoever. So it's a bad example. But just having that sort of contradiction because my father being, very Swedish, but at the same time, he has traveled the world as well. And he's not like a very typically Swedish person either, which is odd. But I mean, it was like my father's decision to come to Sweden and to move here. So any sort of like exposure to bicultural experiences has been a result of my parents, basically. And we have family friends from all over the world. And so there's just this big community of, being able to, talk to people from completely different places. And I feel like that's definitely affected this, and like being able to talk to you as well, like being Italian and stuff. So yeah, it was very special, and I'm very grateful for them for that.
Absolutely. It's amazing. I completely agree with you. And I think that it's something, due to according to my personal experience, something that I always miss so much because, yeah, I have never traveled around the world very much because my family. Hi, my family. Sorry, I like my family. I love so much, but no, yeah. The downside is the fact that they are not very into traveling, discovering new cultures. Yeah, traveling around the world, knowing new people and new culture. They are they are more close to their comfort zone. And,
Yeah.
for this reason, uh, it's the first experience abroad here, and I'm feeling so excited for you that you travel a lot. You had this beautiful and amazing background with people around. I envy you so much, I have to say. Yeah, yeah. I think that it's important, apart from kidding, to build a complex personality, to yeah, to understand that in an amount of point of view situation with different perspective, of course. I look like so excited because every time I get in touch with a person that, oh, I'm traveling very much, oh, my parents is they are from two different countries. Oh, I envy so much for this reason. So, to the question, but do you feel more Swedish or American? That I know that it's a question that maybe everyone many times can ask you. What do you use to answer?
I use both because it got to a point, especially when I moved to Sweden, I would say that I was American because that's the culture I grew up in. That was what I knew. But then getting more assimilated into Swedish society, it was every time I would go back to the States, I would say that I was Swedish. So it was definitely like a polarization. And then there were a few years there where I was just confused as well as to what nationality I was. And then over the last couple of years, I've kind of just adopted like both of them, I would say, because I don't necessarily, there are aspects of Swedish culture that I feel very, very connected to. But the same thing with American culture. Like it's how I grew up and it's my childhood basically. So I don't feel like I can give that up and be completely Swedish in a way. So I usually just say I'm Swedish American. And then if people ask, then I'll have to tell the whole story, which I don't mind doing, but it's a long story, you know. But it's gotten to that point where it's just a balance between the two.
Yeah, the balance, I think that it's the key
Yeah.
word that best describe your personal experience in this sense, of course. And it's very curious and peculiar the fact that you used to feel more from the other country in comparison to the country where you are in this moment, and vice versa. Yeah, it's. I think that because you can experience a stronger. Yeah, correct me if I say something wrong. A stronger feelings of the other country when you are abroad, when you are more far from the other country, maybe for this reason. And yeah, very, very interesting. Absolutely. So you connected America more to your childhood and vice versa, Sweden to your um, adolescent period, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So it's definitely like a change. And especially like whenever I speak to someone who's fully American or fully Swedish, you know, you can sort of pinpoint certain aspects that are like yourself or like me. But at the same time, you don't have the complete connection with that person because you have this whole other culture that's as like equal a part of yourself as the other one. So it's very interesting. But that's why I think like communities of people who are bicultural or just, you know, meeting people that have that clash and like have struggled with that balance as well is so important because you feel like you have your own little, you're not alone in that sense because you found people that are like you as well, even if it's not the same countries, but they've also dealt with that struggle of balance. So yeah, it's really important, I would say.
Of course, absolutely. And you also did a gap here, right? Would you like to share with us some of the most important experience or the experience in terms of studies, volunteering experience, professional experience that represented for you something very crucial, key factors? Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I spent most of my time in or on the other side of the world. So I traveled to, or first I started off in Europe. So I went to London and Scotland as well, where I spent time in Edinburgh, and then I went to Paris too. But then afterwards, I decided to hitch a ride to the other side. So I went to Bali and I spent 2 months there just traveling around and meeting people. I spent, like, me and my sister went together. And then I went back to the US where I spent Christmas with my family because I, like, especially if my grandparents still live there, it's difficult to see them. So every once in a while we get a chance to go there. So that's where we went. And then I spent about 6 weeks in Australia after that. So I traveled up the East Coast, which was really fun, and I decided to do that all on my own. So that was a solo trip. And then I went back to Sweden and worked for about 5 or 6 months. But so I did some volunteering experiences in both in Bali and in Australia. So I volunteered at hostels in both. So I was just there, doing specific housekeeping things or whatnot. So you would basically get like a free accommodation or reduced accommodation to help like do some cleaning or whatnot. So that was really fun. And for me, the gap year was more about just seeing, what else is out there and like not putting as much stress on studies as because I had to put a lot of stress on my high school studies at least. So it was really important for me to be able to, get out there, see the world, and just, you know, also see different places and different cultures that, I hadn't experienced before. So it was a lot of fun. It was strenuous at times, but it was overall one of the best experiences of my life. So
Ah,
yeah.
absolutely. I totally agree with you because I also think that gap year could give to everyone this type of benefits, multi-purpose approach, and it's unfortunately something not very common and well considered in Italy, in the
Mhm.
country where I come from. I don't know why, because as you mentioned, it's here that you basically don't waste your time, but on the contrary, you enrich yourself with an amount of experience that help you to cope with better the university here
Yeah.
that follow the gap here, of course. So
Exactly. Yeah.
totally agree with you, absolutely. And now something more scholastic, more academic.
Uh-huh.
If I list you some fields,
Mhm.
what about to give me a general feedback and explain me some differences and similarities between the countries, which of course compose your double
Mhm.
soul?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, of
okay.
course.
Play this game. So, school and university about education. What do you think about it?
So from an American perspective at least, it's very, very systematic, I would say. So you do the steps, you go through middle school, high school, and then gap years are not really a thing there either, similar to Italy. But so you go to university and then you start working immediately after that. And you kind of have to, considering the debt that you're in after being in university in the US. But when it comes to Sweden, at least, it's very different because it's more relaxed. And when you get to high school, at least, you are able to kind of choose what track you want. So like you can go into social sciences, you can go into natural sciences, or more mechanic. You can go into that as well, or art, music, and have that as your focus when it comes to your studies in high school. And then you have opportunities later on to kind of do whatever you want. So it's very different. And most people after high school in Sweden take a few years off, or just you know maybe don't even go to university because they've had the education that they need to start working at a decent job straight after high school. So they're very different in that way, I would say.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And another team, this time a little bit tricky, but one of the main protagonists of the ongoing debate. So gender gaps, both in terms of salary, but also job position, real gap between this in the society between male and females.
hmm So I would say the U.S. has a lot more issues with this, and they're very, it's getting better with time, but you can see setbacks here and there. But overall, you can definitely see the very distinct separations between when it comes to pay gaps or just societal rules. You still have that idea of, the man being the provider and the woman being the, stay-at-home mom or whatnot. So when it comes to that, there's still a lot of that mindset in the US. In Sweden, it's a bit more different because they haven't had as much of an issue with gender gaps of any sort. I mean, there are, of course, there's always an underlying gap there, whatever society you find, but it's not as distinct and it's not as vast, like the gap between them. So it's um, it's definitely a lot better, but there's always room for improvement when it comes to that. They're not. I would not say that they're on an equal level, at least not yet. So.
Okay. And about citizen participation in an active way, about something connected to public political life.
Mhm. I mean, Americans are very vocal,
Mhm.
so they'll use almost any chance that they get to voice their opinions. So when it comes to demonstrations or political issues, people are very prone to voicing what they want, but it's also easier because of um, their democratic system because it's only two parties. So it's a lot easier to have them clash and to be polarized. So there's been a lot, I mean, especially in recent years, there's been a lot of issues with that. Whereas in Sweden, people are very reserved. Like, you don't necessarily talk that much about politics unless you're very, very invested in it. And right now, at least, there is a very big issue, I would say, because I mean, um, we have a lot of gang violence going on, and so people are very prone to voicing their opinions on that. But at the same time, they won't do it to your face. Instead, it's usually like online or in a very like intimate group setting where they voice their opinions. Otherwise, if there's a chance that there's someone around you that might disagree, you don't really voice your opinion in that way. So they kind of avoid conflict in that sense. Um, but yeah, so there's not that much like political activism to the same extent as in the US, I would say.
Yeah, it's interesting. So more or less, you are saying that Swedish people act in this sense like a mirror of their personality, the general features.
Yeah.
Their fact they are cool. Yeah.
Yeah. They're
Mm-mm.
very reserved.
Reserved.
Yeah.
Environment and climate change.
Let's see. So I mean, there's always in most societies you'll find people that are non-believers of climate change, for example. Um, but when it comes to the environment, at least, and taking care of it, the U.S. is very behind. Absolutely. When it comes to, for example, recycling, Sweden has, like five different things. You sort all your recycling, and it's up to the citizens to do it. So they trust the citizens a lot, which is nice. Um, and environmental issues, we're very big on turbines, so wind power and solar power as well. I mean, we get the sun in summer, but not much else. And also water power. So they are very into different kinds of environmental activism, I would say. Whereas in the US, they're more set back, I would say. It's also a much bigger country, so it's very difficult with that. But there's also, once again, that polarization of, you know, um, anti climate change, like people or non-believers of climate change, and those who actually believe in climate change. So that has a big impact on just making any change whatsoever because of that just vast gap between them. So I would say they have a long way to go, but they're slowly but surely getting there, I hope.
And last, concrete measure of welfare state. So,
For sorry, what?
measure put in practice from by the governments about welfare state.
Um, I mean, you can see. I mean, the U.S. is very like they have very their system is very put in place. They have like it's kind of difficult to describe because it's so systematic, but when it comes to like the welfare states, um it's just this, I don't know, it's very um like clear cut, I would say, but at the same time it's just like there's this big distinction between it. So, and it's hard to describe. Whereas Sweden is a lot more, relaxed when it comes to it. It's not as complicated. And it's just, like I said, the Swedish state trusts the people so much as well. So everyone is so independent in that way. But so there's no like big issue on it, I would say. Yeah.
Also, some general consideration. Thank you so much for your very complete answer, and of course, yeah, very well balanced. It's something like very clear that you have this multi-purpose approach in viewing all the things around you, and yeah, compliments so much. You're very young, but it's something very important to develop this type of skills. Yeah, of course, talking about skills, the skills and the choice that maybe were influenced in your life, both in personal, professional, academic life, due to the fact that you are bilingual and bicultural. In which side, in your opinion, this fact has been influenced? Of course, your life in many sides, in many aspects.
Mhm. So, I mean, when it comes to like certain aspects of the different cultures, I would say they've impacted me more than I can describe. And having the opportunity to experience such vastly different cultures as well as it puts things into perspective. And that didn't hit me at least until I moved to Sweden and I had lived there for at least a year because once you're like if you're just in one society for so long and that's all basically, like for example, so many Americans that don't even have a passport,
Mhm.
a lot of them don't ever leave their state, let alone their country. So um it's it's so interesting to see, and so it makes you feel so grateful as well for getting the opportunity to get out or like to experience so many different things. So in that way, that has led to at least an opportunity to open my eyes and to choose the program that I'm in now. Because if I had just lived in the US, I would not have been interested in international law, I would say.
Mhm.
So just having the background of being bicultural and being exposed to these different environments, it's been the greatest gift of all, I would say, because I don't know if I could live in one place my whole entire life. Like I know I can't now, that's for sure.
Mhm.
But so when it comes to like my choices of academics or just for example where I'm going to live for the rest of my life, like I I it's impacted me more than I can imagine, honestly.
Yeah, in fact, the last question that I would like to ask you is about, of course, your future.
Mhm.
Have you ever already plans for your future, of course, in terms of professional life, academic, personal, or you are like, of course, your own personality and the behavior that you very well described, you are open to
Mhm.
many choices of opportunity that life will deserve you.
Yeah. So I mean, like I would say one of the downsides with being bicultural at least is that
Mm.
I've kind of adopted the whole idea that I can't see like 5 years into the future. Like I have a very difficult time planning my life because there's so many things that I want to do, so many places I want to see. So um, it's because you don't really there's no place that, at least for me, there's no place that feels like home. Like if I go back to the US over the last couple of years, it hasn't felt like the home that it did when I grew up, of course. Whereas like in Sweden I have my family, but that's not necessarily my home anymore. Like my home is here, but that changes as well that'll change when I leave here. So it's in that way it can be a very negative thing and it can impact you negatively as well. But it's also just an opportunity as well if you want to see it like that, because you're able to you have so many opportunities really. Like you can, especially like, in the future, the reason I chose this program as well, being international and European law, is there's so many opportunities to travel and to work abroad. So, which is one of the things I would love to do. Um, so I would say overall, like future wise, I don't have a plan really. Like we'll see what happens. I mean, I'll be working in law hopefully like later on in life, like as a judge or in diplomacy or whatnot. But for now, it's just having the opportunity or even the possibility of the opportunity to go somewhere else and work there and, live in so many different countries. That's the best blessing of all. So.
Absolutely. No, no, yeah, it's something really coherent and connected to all the things that you told me and you explained me about your interracial and multicultural background.
Mhm.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Camilla. It was a big pleasure to have you today here, to have this absolutely clever and interesting talk and the themes that we discussed together. And yeah, I hope that the future and the life will deserve whatever you want.
Thank you. Thank you. This was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
The interview is finished, but stay tuned that the next episode will arrive as soon as possible. Bye. Culture Art is a podcast written and conceived by Federica Pontremoli. The music is by Cruisers. Editing and sound design are by Nicolò Motta.